Good afternoon to everybody. Here again we are with our PBL talks. Today we are happy and pleased to have here with us Professor Bertil Wiman, who is professor in Sweden at the Uppsala University, and of course of tax law. First of all, thanks a lot, Bertil, to be with us today. It's an honor for us to have the possibility to talk with you about this specific moment, particular moment, emergency moment. So, first of all, let me ask you, which is the situation in this moment and how Sweden is approaching the coronavirus situation on a tax perspective in this moment?
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be part of your program here. Starting with the general situation in Sweden on the corona, you know that Sweden has had less restrictions than other countries and less enforceable restrictions. So governed very much by guidelines, and as a result of that, there has not been a total lockdown in Sweden. So far, the compared with our Nordic neighbors, the death toll is higher in Sweden than compared to our neighbors, but on the other hand, the economy has probably fared better than our neighbors. And if you look at the economic measures taken in order to support the society and especially the business sector, there has been a number of them. Of course, there are sectors that are really badly hit. The travel sector, the hotels, restaurants, of course, and also the manufacturing sector has been hit because of the breach in the international supply lines, because we are so integrated with the rest of Europe. So that has been a real issue. And on the other hand, Sweden is benefiting from the crisis we had in 1990, because as a result of that, we had a self-made crisis, financial crisis in 1990, 1991. The Swedish budgetary rules had been quite firm, and as a result of that, the national debt as a percentage of GDP is quite low. It's very low, actually. It's around 30%. So in this moment, there's a lot of room for the government to lend money to raise the debt in order to have different packages to support business. And that's one part. Another part, and now I'm not comparing with the rest of Europe because we are fairly similar, but if you compare with the United States, for instance, the social welfare system is also a cushion in here. With the unemployment benefits and the free healthcare, or the almost free healthcare, that is of course a great help in these times. And the measures taken are both to some extent on the tax side. But the main problem has, of course, been that there is no business. And to lower taxes does not help if you don't have any income. So there's been a mixture. If you look at to help people survive, the allowance for rent, there's normally for big families with kids that needs it, that is going to be raised quite soon. they have changed the rules for sick leave. There used to be a 1 day. You wouldn't get paid from the sickness insurance the first day, but now they want people to stay home as soon as you feel the symptoms. So they have changed those rules. All changes are temporary, of course. Another rule in order to support business is they have changed the 2-week period. The first 2 weeks of someone being sick has normally been paid by the employer, and first after that, it has been paid by the public sector. Now that has changed because of the crisis. So the government picks up the bill already from the first day. There has also been a support for employers who lay off people, so that the government picks up some of the furlough payment, the layoff payment, and this is made in order to enable the businesses to bridge the situation. So, for instance, all big manufacturers and restaurants and so on, they if they cannot provide job, the government kicks in a certain amount. You have to take a pay cut down to 90%, but the cost for the 90% that is paid out to the employee, that is, you can say, shared between the employer and the government. And as a result of that, people are not totally laid off. Otherwise, there would be a risk that you would just fire people because of lack of job. But now they are still employed, receiving less money, but having a place to go back to after the crisis is over. Of course, this costs a lot of money, and one of issue that is not really tax related, but that is the discussion, or you would say, if businesses avail themselves of the support from the government, then there is a restriction on dividend distributions, as long as this support is in place, and of course that has been to some extent a discussion, but I think most businesses understand that if they are being supported for a while from the government for enabling them to keep their employees, then it has been considered reasonable that they don't do any dividend distributions. There has been a discussion, of course, because the dividend distribution is sort of last year's profits, and it's this year's profits that are hurt. But basically, I would say the business community says this is fine. I mean, if everyone survives, they say we can give dividends next year. When it comes to pure tax measures, there are some. They have lowered the Social Security fees for a period of 3 or 4 months here. They have also enabled companies to not to have to pay their monthly prepayment of taxes. This is really not a tax subsidy. I mean, normally the companies would not, if you don't show any profit, of course, then you don't have to make a prepayment of taxes. But there's a formalistic procedure that you would have to undergo, and that is you can say canceled. For sole proprietors, they have introduced rules that actually provides a loss carry back. when they now file the tax return for 2019, we have a certain provision that normally allows a business to make a deduction up between 25 and 30% to an untaxed fund, and that fund will then be taxed a later year. So it's sort of a way to defer profits to a later year, and when you utilize that a later year and have a loss, then of course the substance of that is that loss is taken towards the profits of a previous year. Now, for sole proprietors, that possibility is extended from 25% up to 100% of last year's profits. So they are fully able to wipe out the profits of 2019 and tax them 2020. And for this year, of course, 2020, this year's earnings will be negative. So this will allow them to this loss carry back. Of course, that is not extended to companies, and I'm not really sure about why, but one reason is probably because the formal rules for the annual accounts for a listed company, for instance, and for companies, they are much harder to change. Although I think in Norway they have introduced more comprehensive loss carryback rules. Then there are some other more peculiar tax rules that are coming. There's a lot of gifts to the employees of the healthcare system, to doctors and nurses and other caretakers. Restaurants and other people give them food, and that has been interpreted by the tax authorities that if that food is distributed to the hospitals and provided to the employees, then it will be a taxable benefit because it goes via the employer, and of course that has been considered not very fair, and therefore the rules comes now where those kind of benefits, and also the benefit of free parking that has been introduced on many hospitals to help the staff, that will also be tax free for some time. But it's a little bit peculiar.
Yeah,
that kind of tax exemption. Please interrupt me if you have questions.
No, it's very interesting. So we are learning.
Other more distinct cash benefits is for certain sectors on their rent, like restaurants and shops and others who doesn't have any customers. So there has been introduced for a limited time that the government will actually pay part of the rent if there's an agreement between the landlord and the tenant, because these businesses they really don't have any revenues at all. So that is something that has been very I think in great demand to bridge for those companies that actually don't have any customers and therefore cannot pay their rent.
Yeah.
The shops can be open if they want, but it's but there are no customers because we follow the guidelines and stay home as much as possible. So, well, I think those are. I mean, there are many. There are some other rules where the government have provided access to loans to the business sector, also to bridge, but they go via the bank system. The business is more reluctant to that, because what they say is, if you think the business will come back, of course you can bridge with a loan, but otherwise a loan has to be paid back, and therefore they need direct subsidies. So I'm not sure how useful that has been, but at least the government showed some goodwill in introducing those rules.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Really clear, a really wide overview of the domestic legislation. Thanks. Normally during our talk, we like also to broaden up a little bit the view and focus also on the international side. So if you would like to give some hint or your idea on the international issues that we are facing in this bad period.
Yes. Well, of course, you live in Italy. It's warm and sunny and nice there. And Sweden is of course a country where we are very close to the North Pole. So there are a lot of Swedes that retires in Southern Europe, and Portugal has been a very popular place to retire the last years because of the combination of the Portuguese rules for residents, the tax treaty between Sweden and Portugal, and domestic Swedish rules. So in essence, until lately, it has been possible to retire in Portugal and receive a certain type of private pensions tax-free, totally tax-free, not taxed in Sweden, not taxed in Portugal. So a number of quite a few have emigrated. And of course now, in the Corona times, many Swedes are now that has emigrated are now in Sweden because they are closer to I suppose closer to healthcare and all that they are like to have, and the tax authorities, they are, they make no exceptions if they now, live in Sweden or stay in Sweden. They do risk, if they stay long enough, that they will be considered to be residents of Sweden for both domestic and for applying the tax treaty. And so it shows that there are no exceptions to the normal rules because of the Corona situation. And related to that is the document from the OECD on sort of a temporary interpretation of tax treaties when it comes to different articles on definition of permanent establishment and so on, because we work at home much more now and don't travel, and issues may arise there. And I haven't so far seen any public comment from on this from the tax agency, for instance. But my guess is that we until the government, until the legislature actually implements those changes, it will be. I'm not sure to what extent they will be followed by the Swedish tax agency or the Swedish courts, because there's no emergency clause in the legislation, and only because the OECD would suggest a different interpretation for during the crisis. I doubt that would have have impact on the interpretation when it comes to a Swedish court. And if, another issue has, of course, been all the support that is now poured into the business sector to make them survive. The discussion is here, as well as in other countries. Should that be available also to companies where the ultimate owner is located in a tax haven? And I don't think that is possible. The Swedish government has never been very fond of tax havens, to say the least, and of course, in a situation like this, when we raise the national debt so much in order to support the business, that is one consideration that the government has made.
Very clear. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this both kind of views. The first one at domestic level and the second one at international level. Let me say that not only in Sweden you have this immigration to Portugal of these retired people, because although we have sunny days, we have sun, we have the seas and everything, but however, a lot of Italian people after the retirement would decide normally to go and to expatriate to Portugal, and so to particular islands of Portugal. So we have the same problem. And this is one of the reasons why, for example, the Italian government implemented last year some specific rules to attract this kind of people, giving some tax incentive if they want to repatriate or to come back here in Italy for the retirement period. So they have a lot of tax incentives, especially if they go in specific areas of the south of Italy, for example, or in specific little or small villages. They have some tax incentives for that. So we have the same problem. We feel the same problem. We are trying, just because effectively we have, as Portugal, the sea and the sun, we want to try to attract them also. So we have the same problem. So thanks a lot. We hope we hope to see you soon in person, either in Italy or in Uppsala. And it was really a pleasure to see you again, and hope to see you soon in the future.
Thank you very much for being with us.